Okay, so here we are again, still working on this thing. Today, I want to mount cables, or I want to make brackets to mount cables, fuel lines, really to run anything. So I got a bunch of stuff that's going to be going from the front to the back, to the back to the front. Got 2 fuel lines, got 2 really big cables, battery cables, a bunch of wires, and I want to make ways to attach that to the chassis where it's kind of hidden. It's easy to kind of work with, easy to modify if I need to. And so I'm gonna kind of show you my plan of action, my game plan. There's a couple ways to do this. I'm gonna show you the way I like to do it. So I got 2 main battery cables that I got to run up to the front, from the battery to the front. And then I've got 2 fuel lines that also need to do the same, along with, trigger wires for the fuel pump relay and just all kinds of stuff. One of the ways I like to do this, let's see. I actually used it back here, is make these little tabs that you can basically just zip tie to. So right now I've got these loose, so I can kind of run more wires through there as I need to. I can loom these. These zip ties actually come undone. So they're the kind of zip ties that you can undo. And I like to kind of use this route to get everything the way I want it, and then obviously when I'm done I can go in there and zip tie it all up and it'll be good to go. Now those little pieces, I actually make those myself, and I just make them out of washers. So if you can see that, that's used to be a washer, just a flat washer, and I've kind of put 2 bends on it. So it's got a bend on either side, and the bend is far enough over where the hole itself is bent, which when you kind of mount that thing flat, it leaves a little opening under there for a zip tie to go through. And then depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I'll grind these little edges off. So I've got, I don't know, several of them right here. And then I bought a bag of a bunch more to bend up. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bend these, and then we'll just weld them to those tubes. And about every 12 inches or so, and it should be good to go. So basically, this is how this is going to go. These little things will just be welded on the outside out here. So I'll just tack it on either side, and then as you can see, a zip tie will just slide right through there. My finger wasn't in the way. Just like that. And then you can mount whatever kind of cable or whatnot on the outside. Like that, and then you just zip tie it. Nice and clean, real sturdy, as long as you weld it good. So there's other options as well. I kind of went over in the last video these machine screws. So these are just 832 machine screws. I use these to mount a lot of stuff as well. So you could use these. I like to use one of these drill and tap. So you can just drill a hole. It's going to tap it as well, and then you could use something like this of the appropriate size, and then mount whatever you want it to. Same way with these machine screws. You could do mainly like brake lines and stuff like that are done this way, nice and clean. I like to use this method of zip ties, especially for something like this. Maybe in a race car or something. I don't know. I guess it depends on what you're doing. These will work really well though. I'll just tack weld them on there. And then they'll be able to hold, my battery cables, any kind of fuel lines. So the plan is the battery cables will run through the center section. The fuel lines will actually run out here on the outside. right, so before I continue, because part of the electrical system is going to be this master disconnect, which will also be the key basically in this thing. No need for a key, I'll just use a master disconnect. But I want to mount this thing right here in the center where it's easily accessible by the driver. And the main reason for this too is anytime you're running hydraulics, sometimes the solenoids on the hydraulics pumps can stick or whatever, and you want to be able to shut that off in an emergency. And so I can reach over and just flick it off, and that'll kill the power to the pump. So I'm gonna put this thing right here. So what I want to do is make a bracket to hold it. And the reason I need to get this mounted is because obviously the power cables will run to this thing. So went ahead and sketched out a little piece. Gonna have to add some sides to it. So I'm gonna get this cut out, put a hole in it, get it mounted, and that way I kind of know where I need to run the cables to. How many glasses do I need? All right, so we're warping forward a little bit and she's done. So I can take this thing out, throw it in my pocket if I want to. Not that someone can't get one of these, but. So that'll be the on position. It's off. Now I just gotta mark and drill a hole in the panel that goes over that. And then I can run the wires to these now. So now I know how it needs to route. All right, so I got a bunch of these things mounted. So I got a bunch of them for the fuel lines. And then, I don't know if you can see them, but I got a bunch under here, some on the inside here, one on the back here that just kind of a way to route all these electrical cables. And then I've got some on the other side for the ones that are gonna go to the pump. There's one there. And then I put this key piece in. I already cut the hole for the center console, so all that stuff fits nice and tight. Not 100% sold on the way it looks. I think it's mainly because of the red. So I don't know, maybe I paint this thing gray or something down the road, but it's a good start. I think I'm gonna have to add some more for the fuel lines. I got to figure out how I'm gonna get them to go from the tank over the axle. There's no real good way to do it, so I got to figure that out. But I got to work on electrical first, so I'll go ahead and start cutting these cables, putting some ends on them, kind of fit this stuff up and see where I'm at. All right, so I'm actually making the second cable. I already got the first one on, going to that little master power disconnect. And I'm using these crimpers right here to crimp on these ends. So these are a 1/0 end made for this cable. And then this thing actually has a setting to crimp that. So you can push these tabs in, you can adjust it, it'll crimp different size cable. This thing works really well. Like it puts a heck of a crimp on these things. I've soldered them before too. Just heat up the ends, actually put solder in there. So I'd heat it up, put solder in there, and then you just push the cable in there and let it cool. So I've done that as well. A lot of people don't like solder. They say, a lot of automotive guys don't like solder. They say that it makes the ends brittle, And if it flexes too much, it'll actually snap off. They said that crimps work better. I mean, I don't usually let my cables move around much. I kind of fasten them down where they're not going to go anywhere. But I also use this shrink tube, and I've done some videos on this and those crimpers. I think I did a Friday full video on those crimpers a long time ago. But I use this stuff, and it's actually got a glue in it. So once you heat it, there's a glue on the inside that actually glues itself to the cable and the end. And I've tested it out before, glued them on there and then tried to get them off, and it glues them really well. So, not that I don't think the cables, the crimper can't do the job, but I guess a little extra security is the glue. I'll show you here in just a second. We'll heat this thing up. This is also 3-to-1 shrink tube, and I've talked about it in some videos where I buy the stuff that's high shrink, because as it shrinks, especially if it's way oversized, as it shrinks, it gets thicker. It gets real thick, so it makes it real robust as far as how strong it is. Alright, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not. If you look, there's a little shininess right there. It's actually like glue. It's like a hot glue, I guess is what it is. So as that thing shrinks, it kind of squeezes that stuff out. And right now I can peel it off because it's still a bit warm, but once it cools, I mean, it really does glue that piece on there. So little tip for you. Get the like the 3-to-1 or 5-to-1, I think. Let's see what my bag says. It doesn't say. 3-to-1? I think it's 3-to-1. Anyway, it could be really big. It'll shrink way down. It's got glue in it. So, little tip, get the 3-to-1 or the high shrink insulator with the glue. Make sure it has the glue. It works really well. I actually recommend that for any kind of connectors you use as well. So, if you're just doing small wire, these connectors also have glue in them, so they work really well as well. Well, let's get back to work. Well, I think I got it. So, all the way up here to the starter, and not really sure who designed this thing, but it was awfully tight getting in there. But I got it, and then the other one goes right to the back of the cylinder head. So true ground right to the engine, power, ground, and then it just kind of walks its way all the way back along that tube. Let's see if I can show you. So yeah, just walks its way along that tube. Power obviously stops here, the main cutoff, and up and around and then down to the battery. That was pretty time consuming, but I wanted it to be just right. And I'll actually probably zip tie it some more just to make sure the two, when you kind of tie those two together, they can't flex, they won't go anywhere. It's real stiff. And so everything will be nice and done. It's crazy because I'm so particular about the way things look. Like even if a washer or the line, the cable doesn't turn right there on the back of the cylinder head, I kind of fought with it because I've got these cylinder head grounds for the coils that have to go right here. I didn't really like the way that thing looked, kind of hanging out. So I kind of flipped it around, had it on the inside, had it all over the place. But it actually doesn't look too bad. Thing I know is that I'll be the only one that notices it. Nobody else will care. So, all right, well, got that done. Check it off the list. I've got some other cables that need to kind of go through that power distribution. So the main power wire from the alternator has to run all the way back to the battery side of that thing. That way when you cut it off, the alternators can't feed the system either. That way when it's running, when you flip that thing, it'll turn off regardless of what's going on. You turn that off and you got no power. No power from the battery, no power from the alternator. So I'm gonna run that back there. I'll have to run a power wire off the front side of that to the hydraulic pump. That way I can cut it off. And then a couple little odds and end power, kind of power up the system up here. A couple little grounds, and I think we're ready to go. Fuel system, fuel lines, and I'm gonna try to fire this bad boy up.